Someone in my friend circle recently raised the question, which gave me the idea for today's episode. Should you be friends with your clients was the question du jour. And then I actually got to see a situation play out live time that had me sort of rethinking what I had originally thought. So with two confirmations, two times the charm, here we go with today's episode. Can you/should you befriend your clients? Should you take on friends as clients? What are the pros? What are the cons? Just how blurry should these lines be between personal and professional relationships? To mix or not to mix? That's the question we're tackling today. Welcome to Content with Character, the weekly podcast that'll give you the momentum you need to create content with more ease, clarity, and laughter. I'm your host, content copywriter Emily Aborn, and I'm all about unconventional marketing approaches. I believe in your big ideas, and I'm excited to help you share them in a way that's distinctly you. Often debated in business circles, some swear by mixing friendship and business, and others avoid it like the plague. So to mix or not to mix, that's the question we're going to tackle today. My hope is that by the end of this episode, you can determine for yourself whether or not you might want to work with friends, consider working with friends, befriending your clients, collaborating with your pals, and you'll have a better understanding of how that might look for your unique business. So before we dive into it all, I do want to say a quick hello in case we haven't met before, and welcome back, of course, if you're a regular around these here parts. I am a small business copywriter and marketing consultant, which means that I help business owners write and create marketing to help their clients see them as a trustworthy support and, in some cases, a friend. I help build that know, like, and trust through the power of a strong brand voice and messaging. So if you want to learn more about me and how I can help, you can always find me on my website, emilyaborn.com, or check the show notes where all the ways to connect with me are. Fair warning, I do tend to be very friendly if you reach out, and hope that we will become fast friends. So that brings me actually to my first kind of point for today's episode. Like, what is a friend? It's a word that probably has a lot of different meanings for each of us. So meaning it's a very subjective word. I would say that covers a broad range of relationships. So I thought that we could start today's episode by really defining that and then sort of talking about maybe the differing levels of friendship, because I think that's where some of the good stuff lies. So in short, the definition of a friend is someone with whom you share a bond of mutual affection, trust, and support. This is not my definition, by the way. I got this off the internet. It is usually outside of a familial or romantic relationship, although I would say it doesn't need to be. Friendships can be based on shared interest, experience, values, or just enjoying each other's company. So in my book, it's kind of in my late 30s, actually, that I've really come to my own definition of what a friend looks like. And so I have three things that I use to qualify somebody as a friend. And those three things are trust, respect, and then like a mutual delight in being around each other, as in you're actually excited to see, talk to, or engage with that person, and they're actually excited to see, talk to, or engage with me. So I would encourage you to kind of think of your own definition of friend, and then as you do that, you can start to see how these different levels of friendship play out. So you can have kind of different ways that friendship will look for you. Now, it does not actually matter to me what the level of friendship is. I still love that trust, respect, and mutual delight. But of course, my different friendships have different levels of, say, closeness. We might have a higher level of trust, right? So it's like kind of playing out like that for me. So I like circles. I love circles. So let's make these like little circles of friends, right? So first we have the inner circle. Now, this is usually like your best and your closest friends. You probably are not going to have a ton of them. Maybe you do. I don't know. But these are the people you trust with thoughts and fears and your past, present, and future, your dreams, right? And you can just feel like you can be fully yourself. Personally, my close friendships are built on authenticity, meaning that we are truly ourselves, loyalty, trust, that mutual delight I was talking about, and in most cases, shared interests. These are people that I can go to for support and then also vice versa, and I want to be there to support them. I'm comfortable being vulnerable around them, being myself around them. And so, like I said, I have very few of these friends, and that's intentionally so that I can really give people like my time, energy, presence when I'm with them. I feel so impeccably lucky every single day to have these people in my life. And that is kind of how the inner circle feels, right? Like you all just feel so much joy and gratitude for each other. It's kind of a little nuts sometimes. It took me a long time in life to find these people. There's a lot of talk about how like women, especially in their kind of like 30s to 40s, do struggle with some of these like deeper friendships. And I can speak to that I've just personally spent a lot of my life like not really fitting in or belonging and not really making friends who got me or friends who I didn't have to pretend in some way as I was around them. And so finally now, as like a nearly 40-year-old lady, I'm still working on the trust factor of friendships and just like being okay showing various aspects of myself. But I truly have found these people and am grateful for it every single day. If you listened to the April 1st episode, you actually got to hear one of my inner circle friends, Lindsay Dreyer. She was a guest on the first episode of this month, and she is one of these people in my life. I love her to pieces, and I would pretty much do anything for her. All right, so then we move out to so think about who your inner circle is. And you probably, I mean, like most people, if you have 3, you're doing pretty good, okay? Then we move to the middle circle. These are good friends. They might be work friends. Maybe they're your quote unquote business besties. You might spend time together, but it's probably a little bit less. And you probably do have meaningful conversations and share some sort of like mutual support. But there's probably a little bit more distance in terms of either frequency or depth, usually in one of those things. Okay. And I should say this is not a bad thing, because if you're both okay with this like proximity and the way that things are, I don't think that you should have a million close friends or like best friends, but you probably can fill out this middle circle with kind of a lot of great people, right? So you may have met them through a professional setting, or maybe you are just friends at work, or you hang out casually outside of that, or, you have a hobby together. You might be networking or business buds, entrepreneurial support systems, creative hype buddies, like that kind of thing. So these are people who you probably share resources with, you collaborate with, but it's chances are high that your personal lives are not deeply intertwined. Now, as I said, you can fill out this middle circle with some really fantastic people, and I would say I have a lot of these in my life. And it's only when one of those factors I mentioned at the beginning is gone for me, trust, respect, or delight, that then I might say, you know what, they either shouldn't be a friend, or I need to move them even further out to the outer circle. These are our acquaintances, our loose ties, our connections. You probably have a lot of these people. These are all your friends on Facebook, right? These are the people who you might know their name. You may have contacted them or chatted a few times or connected a couple times here and there, chat via social media. You engage from time to time. Maybe you interact with them in a business setting or work setting. Maybe you support each other's work and professionally refer each other, but you don't have like that personal connection. And you probably don't go out of your way to chat much or get together beyond like that business or work or professional spirit. And I'm going to add in like a hobby or maybe your kid's school or something like that. Then this isn't really like moving out, but this is kind of just another category. Let's call this a side circle, okay? This is the situational friends. And I'd say these like just come and go. These are childhood friends, college roommate friends, library book club friends, gym friends, neighbors, people you might be connected to from the past or present activities, but it doesn't necessarily translate, and maybe it never even has, into like a present day closeness. That said, you're probably very friendly, and in some cases, you might even end up getting together, but it doesn't tend to extend past that unless you take some sort of action to deepen that connection or to maintain it a little bit stronger or to move it up a level. So I'll give you an example. I go to this book club once a month at my library. I adore some of the ladies in my library's book club. I also have a neighbor named Deborah, and I love Deborah. And we've gone out to dinner with her and her husband on several occasions. Now, I've considered if I wanted to kind of say so Deborah and these book club ladies, we all live in the same town. And I've considered, should I ask everybody? We have some things kind of in common. Should I ask everybody if they want to do a weekly morning walk? But I have not yet taken the step to move us up that level, right? To kind of extend past how we have it set up. So as of now, these are people that, and you can probably think of people like this in your own life. These people remain in that situational category. So here's a couple things to remember. First of all, none of these are bad. I think it's actually not great if you think that everybody needs to be your absolute best friend or you keep everybody kind of at a distance, right? So you kind of need all of these different circles in your life, and not everyone is going to be or has to be a friend at all. So definitely not everybody needs to be in the close friend category, but sometimes you don't need to have that friend at all. So personally, I really love to be comfortable with the people that I bring in as my close friends. And like I said, I like to be able to pour myself into those friendships, go deep with them, give them my presence, give them my energy, my time, my attention. I don't have capacity for sort of a ton of people in that circle. And I think that no matter the level, friendships, if you decide to have somebody as a friend, they take time, they take effort, they take maintenance. And sometimes it means going through really tough stuff together, being really vulnerable with each other, being honest with each other, being there for each other. So, there should be an application for your friendship here. Every friendship, every relationship takes some sort of effort to maintain. Now, they say that you are, I don't know who they are in this instance, but they say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, I'm not sure if that is true, but I do think that who you choose in that close circle, who you bring in as your close friends, it does have a lot of weight, because great friends can, even on their worst days, honestly, even on your worst days, you lift each other up, you inspire each other, you cheer each other on, you are able to just show up how you are, you support each other. And on the converse, toxic or misaligned friendships, they can end up really bogging you down, bringing you down, making you sad, anxious, angry, and questioning everything. Ask me how I know. So choose your friends wherever you decide that whatever circle you put them in, choose your friends wisely. A quote I love for deep, true friendships is, a friend is somebody who knows all about you and still loves you. That's by Albert Hubbard. Okay, so enough about friends and the definition of friends. Let's get down to business. Should you work with friends? Should you have friends as clients? Should you become friends with your clients? Let's break each of these questions down on their own, because my belief and experience is that when it works, it's magical. And when it doesn't, it can be living hell, and it can get messy very, very fast. Again, I may or may not speak from experience. So my first question that we're going to address is, should you work with friends? I think the place to begin when answering this one is asking yourself more questions. Ask yourself questions about both yourself and also the friend. And every situation and every friendship is going to look entirely different. So you kind of have to look at where somebody fits into your life and whether or not this overlap is going to make sense with your business and friendship. You may look at your best friend and say, you know what? I don't want my best friend to work with me. But you may see things in your closest or your best friends, but it might be yes, their strengths, but also their weaknesses. And so because you know them so well, It's going to be able to help give you a lot of information about whether or not it's a good or bad fit with business. So, for example, one of my close friends might be a great listener. They might be an idea, an innovative whiz. They might be a really high energy person. But if I say, how do I see their weaknesses maybe playing out in my business? Maybe they're not organized. Maybe they're not responsive. Maybe they're not giving the time and attention that I would to a project or venture. I'm just giving an example. This is not a real scenario. So you can see how you might have a close friend or best friend, and your closeness actually might be part of the way that you can kind of red flag or green flag it, and whether or not it's a yay or nay. Now I have, and I'll get into kind of like something to consider in a minute, but I do have a very close friend who is a subcontractor of mine, and we put a lot of conversation in place up front on how we were going to make that work. So you have to consider what you know, how well you know the person, look at their strengths and weaknesses, and apply that to your business. So another thing I like to do here is I personally go through mentally and say, what is the best case scenario? So what will happen if this goes amazingly well, if this is a success? And I also look at the worst case scenario. What could go terribly wrong? And what if this comes crashing down? And then I have to ask myself, sometimes I'll have the conversation with a friend and say, how will we address this if it's going to happen? But if I'm okay with both of the potential outcomes, because both of them are highly possible, and there's also a huge range of other outcomes that are possible. But if I'm okay and I'm like, I can actually deal with both of those, then I go ahead and move forward. So the other really important key is to set boundaries up front. So for example, having the conversation, like, how do we want to have communication about this venture or project? Are we going to be texting? Are we going to be emailing? Are we going to be using the phone or Voxer or Zoom? Or do we just keep it to one form of communication, or does it kind of merge into all of our other forms of communication? And are we saving one for just the personal stuff? So really having those conversations up front can be incredibly helpful. Do we have to draw boundaries on what we bring up or say in our presentations or client meetings? Like, is there somewhere that there might be a line that could be a little blurry, and you have to set that up front? Or maybe during work times, we don't talk about personal stuff, right? Sometimes we save things for our walks in the woods, and sometimes we bring things up during working hours. So you can see how if you don't have these conversations up front, if you don't consider these up front, what could be a totally magical situation can get real blurry and real complicated really fast. The other factor in this is your own unique business, your own unique profession. So for example, there are a lot of people I really, really like, and I would love to be their friend, but it's not in either of our best interest for us to be close friends. So for example, I might want to be really, really good friends with my massage therapist or an actual therapist or a coach, but it might not just be conducive to the way that we're doing our work to be best friends with a coach, right? Or my coach. So hiring a best friend actually could be a really fantastic option for you. You just have to kind of think it through. You have to think about those extra boundaries you might need to put in to protect your friendship first and foremost, and also your business. So I guess I'm just going to say that you want to protect both of those things. Becoming close with a client, you might need that little extra effort to ensure that expectations and communication lines aren't blurred. That's a real upfront kind of conversation you need to have. Collaborating with a bestie, that might end up being the perfect mix of friendship and professionalism. You just kind of have to think about it, talk about it, and you and only you can determine whether or not it's a good fit. Next question, should you have friends as clients? And again, it depends. There's some definite pros. I'll just use my business as an example. As a copywriter, it's really kind of great to have my friends and my clients because I know about them, or I'm learning even more about them. So then I can really bring to life some of those unique personality and character pieces that I would want to as their copywriter in working with them and supporting them. Where it can go wrong is unmet expectations, hidden resentment, unsaid things, right? Pricing snags, overrun boundaries, the whole gamut. So for me, it really depends on the person and our relationship. And I've also learned that we sometimes need to step into a different role when we're working with them as a client versus when we're just hanging out with them socially. And I have had to be very upfront about what is expected of me, what am I going to deliver on, how do we communicate in between, how do we navigate conflict and issues, and what expectations do we have? That's all like kind of stuff you want to hash out right from the get-go, or else it can go wildly south. If something comes up, you want to handle it swiftly and directly rather than brushing it under the rug or assuming it's all your fault, like whatever the case may be. Doing business with friends can be the best thing. It is really so fun. It is like the kind of project that just makes you happy and proud and creative. And it has also ruined friendships of mine. Doing business with friends has been some of the best I've given and also received in my life. And it's also had some really challenging moments. So there's no right answer, but I would say once again, that the friendship comes first. So if we're going to go down this route, we have to commit to being open and honest with each other about what comes up right away, work on it together so that no one is end up hurt or resenting the other person. Most of the people that I've done business with who are my friends are like, yes, please, let's talk about this right up front because we don't want this to end badly either. So sign us up for honesty and let's get started. Next question. Should you become friends with your clients? I'm weirdly less wary of this than I am with making friends my clients. With my clients, specifically in my business, I get a chance to really dig deep. I learn a lot about them. I work very closely with them. It's usually for kind of a long time. And I understand a lot of their values, their motives, their personality in the course of our collaborating. And I give them a little bit of that from my side too, not a ton because it's all about them. Some of them I am still very friendly with and we interact regularly. I treat all of my clients, I would say, as friends because by my definition that I shared in the beginning, they are in the friendship circle. If a client and I ended up becoming pals because of our work together, I would celebrate that. That said, I don't do a ton of like ongoing projects for my clients. It is like, it takes a while, but it's not something that we're doing incredibly long term. So if a friendship comes through in that and then we still like get to and want to hang out with each other or spend time with each other, that's fantastic. That's a fantastic outcome. I have some retainer clients and I spend time with some of those in my like friend circles. So it's nothing is off the table. Never say never. And again, only you can decide this. But business relationships actually can sometimes end up being a great testing ground for a person and determining whether or not, do we have stuff in common? Like, are we friendship material? Now, where I have to remember to draw the line, and maybe this will be helpful for you too. When somebody who is a client of mine wants to be my friend, it does not always necessarily mean that I want to be theirs, nor does it mean that I have to be theirs. I have somebody who's not a client, but she is like a prospect, and I can tell that she wants to be friends. I do not want to be friends. I can already tell from having this prospective conversation with her that we wouldn't be great friends, but she kind of keeps pushing and pushing, and it feels a little bit manipulative in that I'm being sometimes used as a slight brain picking source. And I do not want that in my friendships whatsoever. So you can see that sometimes it can be confusing and sometimes it can be complicated. And maybe you're even being strung along with like, okay, you sent a proposal. Yes, you were friendly, but that doesn't mean you want to be friends. And are they just saying yes to the proposal because they do want to be friends? Like, this has happened to me before. So it's not a fun experience. And you don't have to be friends with anybody that you don't want to be. And you don't have to work with anybody who is kind of like, you can tell that it's not for the right reasons. There are also instances where I can see people misunderstanding or thinking that perhaps you're closer than you are because of the nature of your work. So think of a therapist or a coach or some sort of health practitioner, right? Or a massage therapist or hairdresser. Like those people are all in very supportive roles. People are probably sharing a lot with you in those professions, and they might form bonds or connections with you that may not be mutual. So I think that's my reminder in helping yourself answer this question. Should I become friends with my clients? First of all, is there kind of a level of confidentiality that I need to uphold? And what does that look like? Secondly, is this actually a mutual desire, or are they kind of building a false friendship with me based on how I'm supporting them? Personally, I am all about doing business with fantastic people. Some of those people include my friends. Some of those people become friends. And at the same time, I am incredibly protective of my friendships, and I am incredibly loyal to my friendships. And I'm also incredibly loyal and protective of my business. So if either of those blending is going to pose a threat to the other one, it's a no-go for me. And I will turn someone down or just kindly recommend them to go elsewhere or, whatever the case may be. Also, if I genuinely don't think I am the best person for the job, but they're coming to me because I'm a friend and they think that this is maybe what will help them get clarity or provide what they're looking for, I tell them right up front, because one of my biggest nightmares is like them thinking that you are an expert in something or having these expectations of how you're going to work with together just because you are friends. And that can really slowly erode trust and friendships as resentment builds. And I don't want that for you, and I definitely don't want them for myself. So that's where I stand. I lead with yes, and I proceed with caution. I fight for and protect both my business and my strong relationships and friendships at every turn. So we covered the questions. I wanted to turn it over to you for some things to consider, and I'm just going to recap us with some pros and cons. Pros of working with friends or turning people you work with into friends. 4 pros are you have the established trust and rapport. You already know each other. It makes communication and collaboration a little smoother. Another pro is that it is fun and enjoyable. Working with people that you like can make your business really, really fulfilling. Number 3, you have shared values and vision. So friends often or tend to align on values, and it can make decision-making easier. It can make the whole process easier. And then you also have that kind of like natural referral and growth. Like friends want to support each other's businesses and spread the word. So you kind of have that nod to both of you, right? The cons of working with friends or being friends with clients or befriending clients are that boundaries can get blurry. Personal and professional can be blurry boundaries. It might be harder to deliver tough, honest feedback. You might not be able to fully be yourself or be vulnerable, and you might need to kind of show up as professional you and then also personal you, and that might be hard for some. You might also run the risk of showing favoritism or feeling obligated or over-delivering. So these are all things you kind of need to think through. And then if things go wrong, it can impact your business or it can impact the personal relationship. So now, of course, as you sit with this hopefully balanced perspective on how this might play out in your business, I actually want to open this up and hear your thoughts on blending business and friendship and whether or not you're a yay or nay or somewhere in between and why, and have you had any horror stories? So send me a message on Instagram or an email or visit the show notes and you can find all the ways to connect with me. Messenger pigeons don't usually make it as far as my neck of the woods, just a fair warning. So best to find me on one of the links in the show notes. And on that note, I will chat with you, my friend, next week. We are going to get deep into the world of time management because I ran some personal experiments recently and I got a bone to pick with some of these time management tools. So I will chat with you then. thanks for listening to this week's episode of Content with Character. If you loved the episode, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast, rate, review, and share it with someone else you know it could help. For more content and visibility tips, visit my blog at emilyaborn.com, and be sure to connect with me on Instagram at emilyaborn. I'd love to hear how this inspired you to take action.